Kindly remain standing as the students in uniform groups take their positions. We shall now have the Malaysian national anthem. For service personnel in uniform, please salute. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, past and serving members of the Malaysian and Australian Defence Forces, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Malaysian government, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the people and governing bodies of Sabah for your warm welcome of those who visit Sandakan for this service. I welcome all those Malaysian, Australian, and British holders of public service. Your presence adds significance to this solemn event, and I would like to make special mention of the Honorable Datuk Caesar Mandela Malakun, Assistant Minister to the Chief Minister of Sabah, representing the Right Honorable Chief Minister of Sabah, Her Excellency Ms. Danielle Heineke, the Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Mr. A.J. Sharma, CMG, the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Mr. Michael Wehi Mailatonga Walsh, the New Zealand High Commissioner to Malaysia, the Honorable Mr. David H. Gamble Jr., Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia, the Honorable Datu Andrew Sim, Honorary Consul of Australia to Sabah, the Honorable Mr. David Powell, Honorary British Consul to Sabah, Madam Norita Tani, Senior Assistant Secretary representing the Minister and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Environment, Sabah, Mr. Johnny Rongitom, Head of Valuation and Property Management, representing the President of Sandakan Municipal Council, Ms. Josephine Chai, Chief Marketing Officer, representing the Chief Executive Officer of Sabah Tourism Board, Mr. Janius Elias Jurimin Ebin, representing the Chief Conservator of Forests, Sabah, Honorable Members of Parliament and State Assemblymen, Datu-Datu, Datin-Datin, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I also acknowledge the presence of the family members of those who were interned here in Sandakan during the Second World War, as well as the local Sabahans who selflessly sought to assist them. Terima kasih. Today, in solemn remembrance, we honor all those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and we stand with the families who have grieved for their loved ones who will never return home. Ladies and gentlemen, The catafalque party for today's service will be provided by members of the Royal Australian Air Force based in Butterworth, Malaysia. If you are able to, please stand for the mounting of the catafalque party.
Catafalque party! Attention! Catafalque party! Slow! March!
Please be seated. I would now like to invite to the lectern Mr. Rodney Eric Bramish, OAM, veteran, to present this morning's call to remembrance.
The Sandakan Memorial Park is a site of memory, a place of remembrance and reconciliation. It honours the memory of servicemen who were brought here as prisoners of war during the Second World War. Men who experienced unimaginable cruelty, suffering and death, but through it all showed the true meaning of service, sacrifice, comradeship and friendship. The Memorial Park also honours the courage of those local people who risked their lives to assist the prisoners who were suffering. They endured wartime occupation and bore witness to the tragedy that unfolded here. Some 2,750 Australian and British prisoners of the Japanese forces were imprisoned at Sandakan between July 1942 and August 1945. Very few survived the war. The prisoners were brought here from their places of capture, Singapore and Java. They were subjected to terrible mistreatment, including beatings, starvation, disease and execution. Some were transferred elsewhere, including Labuan, where none survived, Kuching and Singapore's Outram Road Jail. At Sandakan, conditions continued to worsen and the death rate increased. In early 1945, the Japanese captors began forcing prisoners to march into the rugged mountains. Not one man left behind in Sandakan survived. Only 6 who marched for Ranau lived by escaping and receiving help from the local people. We paid tribute to the British and Australian servicemen who experienced captivity at Sandakan and other places they were sent. Men like Aircraftsman First Class Leslie Walter Reed, Number 211 Squadron, Royal Air Force, a British serviceman transferred to Labuan, where he died on or about the 30th of November 1944, aged 23. Private Thomas Henry Robbins, 8th Divisional Ammunition Sub-Park, Australian Army Service Corps, Australian Imperial Force, who died at Sandakan on or about the 4th of June 1945. Private Sydney Russell Corps, 2nd 18th Infantry Battalion, Australian Imperial Force, who died on the 2nd March to Ranau on or about the 20th of June 1945, aged 23. And Lieutenant Alan Hamilton Loxton, 2nd 18th Infantry Battalion, Australian Imperial Force. He survived the war at Kuching. He recalled his reaction of learning the fate of the men at Sandakan and Ranau. In his words, nothing much else but horror. The heartbreak of Sandakan is in the enormity of just how many lives were cut short and the impact that had on the families and loved ones. As with all wars, those who do not survive to return home are not granted the opportunity to tell their stories, to recover and rebuild, and to contribute to the future with peace. Their families are left to do this in their honour and the hope that these tragedies never occur again. This shared history will forever bind our countries, Malaysia, Australia, United Kingdom and Japan. The site of the Sandakan Memorial Park was once a place of horror. It is now a beautifully cared for site of memory. A place for those who travel here to reflect on our combined and contrasting histories of war. A place to honour those servicemen, families and locals whose lives were forever changed by the war. A place where families from all 4 countries travel for remembrance and reconciliation. A place of healing.
Thank you, Mr. Rodney Eric Bramish. Now, allow me to humbly invite His Excellency Mr. A.J. Sharma, CMG, British High Commissioner to Malaysia, to deliver his commemorative address.
Representatives of the Government of Sabah, Datuk Sri Mandela, representatives of Sandakan Municipal Council of the Malaysian Armed Forces, my fellow High Commissioners, the US Chargé d'Affaires, Selamat pagi, good morning. And most importantly, good morning to the families and representatives of those who died as prisoners of war in Borneo during the Second World War, and to the families and representatives of the brave Sabahans who helped them and who also suffered so much under occupation. I'd like to thank all of you for coming this morning to pay your respects to our heroes. I know that many of you have come before and will return, and so thank you for your commitment to their memory. Because it's through gatherings like this that we remember them and their lives, who they were, what they wanted to be, and what they became. And it's through events like these that we, more than 70 years on, get to imagine what it must have been like for them to suffer the heat, the illness, the mistreatment, to find friendship in hardship, and to look for hope in misery. And when we take a moment to imagine, I'm sure all of us are filled with deep emotions, admiration for our prisoners of war, sadness and despair at what they had to endure, regret for the lives that were changed forever, and deep gratitude that we haven't had to live through any of the suffering and hardship which became, here in Borneo, the everyday reality of more than 2,700 men, of whom only 6 survived. And as a diplomat whose job is to prevent war and resolve conflict, I am every year personally overwhelmed by the intensity of the testimonies, the personal stories of sacrifice and tragedy, but also by the personal stories of peace and reconciliation, from the stories of families meeting after generations, to hearing schoolchildren from Japan singing alongside schoolchildren from Sabah, as we did last night. And these stories and these actions inspire me, and I hope they will inspire you to make a contribution in whatever way we can to building trust and understanding, to remembering our shared humanity, and to ensuring what happened here in Sabah's beautiful and peaceful rainforests never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. A.J. Sharma. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to have the honor to invite Her Excellency Ms. Danielle Heineke, Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia, to deliver her commemorative address.
Salamat pagi. Ladies and gentlemen, we remember the Australian and British prisoners of war who endured captivity at Sandakan and perished on the death marches to Ranau and the other locations including Kuching, Labuan and Ranau itself. We come not only to remember how they died, but how they lived with courage, endurance, loyalty and an unbreakable commitment to one another in the face of unimaginable hardships. The story of Sandakan is often told in numbers. More than 2,700 Australian and British forces went to Sandakan. In 1943 and 1944, some were transferred to other camps and prisons. Of the more than 2,400 who remained, almost all perished. Only 6 Australians escaped and survived the death marches of 1945, and they did so because the local people here in Sabah risked their lives to help them. But today we remember that every one of those numbers was a person, a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a mate. Each had hopes for their future and loved ones waiting at home. Among them was Lieutenant Gordon Wheaton, one of the few Australians to survive. He was transferred to Kuching and later spoke of the extraordinary resilience of the men around him at Sandakan. Even as disease, starvation and exhaustion took hold, many prisoners continued to share rations, assist the sick, and encourage those who could barely continue. Their courage was not always dramatic. Often it was found in small acts of kindness and sacrifice. We remember men such as Private James Dick Braithwaite, who despite his own weakening condition on one of the death marches, repeatedly helped fellow prisoners who could no longer carry their loads or walk without support. Such acts were common among the prisoners. Private Braithwaite would later risk everything by escaping from the march with his mates in a desperate quest to survive. He was one of the 6 who survived. We also remember those who continued the march, knowing they might never reach their destination in conditions that tested the limits of human endurance. They demonstrated the values that define the finest traditions of service, courage, mateship, selflessness and duty. Again, men chose loyalty to their comrades and mates over their own comfort and safety. We remember men like Captain Dominic George Piccone, a medical officer who refused an offer to escape from Ranau. He stayed to care for the last sick and dying men and then was executed. Today we stand in peace. We inherit a responsibility. We honour these men not only through remembrance but through our commitment to the values for which they stood. Their sacrifice must never be forgotten, and we hope their example to inspire future generations To reiterate the words of AJ Sharma before, I'm also humbled to see the Japanese team here today, not just a mother, the amazing Kana and the team that have come out, the students that have come out here today, and I think that message of conflict prevention, never again, is a really important one for all of us today. May we always remember their sacrifice, lest we forget.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ms. Danielle Heineke. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now have the privilege and honor to invite the Honorable Datuk Caesar Mandela Malakun to deliver the address on behalf of the Right Honorable Chief Minister of Sabah.
Your Excellencies, High Commissioners, and diplomatic representatives of Australia, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and the United States. Honorable Senator, honorable members of the Sabah State Legislative Assembly, government officers, members of the armed forces, representatives from the Sandakan Municipal Council, veterans, descendants and family members of the prisoners of war, and of Sabahans who assisted, students, visitors, our friends from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to deliver this address on behalf of the Right Honorable Chief Minister of Sabah, Datuk Sri Panglima Haji G. bin Haji Noor. The Chief Minister has asked me to convey his respect and that of the Sabah State Government to everyone gathered here this beautiful morning. 81 years ago, today, people across the world heard that the war in the Pacific had ended. Here at the Sandakan camp, there was almost no one left amongst the prisoners to hear it. Post-war testimony records that the last prisoner at the Sandakan camp was killed subsequently. This lies at the heart of this morning's commemoration. While the world received news of peace, those here, their suffering had not ended. We stand this morning on part of the prisoner of war camp, the starting point of a journey into the interior parts of Borneo, from which almost no one returned. Between 42 and 45, approximately 2,700 Australian and British prisoners of war passed through Sandakan. By January 1945, 2,434 remained. 1,793 Australians and 641 British servicemen. Of those men, only 6 Australians survived, and each survived by escaping. More than 1,000 weakened, starving men were forced westward on 3 marches across approximately 260 kilometers of jungle, mountain paths, and difficult terrain towards Ranau. Many died along the route, others died at Ranau or here at the Sandakan camp from starvation, illness, exhaustion, violence, and execution. Although the figures show the scale of the tragedy, they do not tell us who these men were. They were young men with ambition and unfinished lives. Among them were husbands whose wives waited for them for their return, fathers whose children would know them mainly through photographs, and sons whose parents waited for letters and then for answers that never came. They hailed from cities, towns, farms, mining communities across Britain and Australia. They had names, they had people who loved them, and they must never be reduced to mere numbers. To the descendants and family members here, the men you have come to remember did not return to their homes, but their names have never left this place either. For 81 years, the consequences of Sandakan have remained within families, in photographs and letters, in unanswered questions, and in stories passed down from one generation to the next. What your families have preserved reminds us that every name belonged to a person who was known and loved. Your presence reminds us that remembrance must remain connected to individual lives and to the families for whom the loss did not end with the war. Today, we also remember the 6 survivors: Bill Stipowich, Dick Braithwaite, Owen Campbell, Keith Botterill, Nelson Short, and Bill Moxham. Their survival was extraordinary. One of them, Owen Campbell, who was sick, weak, and separated from the march, saw a canoe carrying local men. He called out one word, "Abang," brother. Lap and Galunting, the men on the canoe, could have went on their way, as during the time, helping an escaped prisoner of war placed their own lives and their families living nearby in danger. Thankfully, that canoe turned towards him. They brought Campbell to safety, and local people, including Kulang and villages around Kampung Muanad, helped shelter and care for him. He called for a brother, and Lap and Galunting treated him as one. Their decision showed that even under occupation, compassion had not disappeared. There were others whose names deserve to be remembered as well: Bariga, Dihil bin Ambilit, Abing, Kulang, and many more whose courage may never be fully recorded. There were also organized efforts by the local resistance, including Johnny and Lillian Funk, and members of the Sandakan Underground, who gathered information and helped prisoners despite the terrible risks. Some members of the underground were executed. They acted without protection and at great personal risk. When they saw suffering, they chose to help. Their courage is part of the history of Sandakan and the people of Sabah, and it must also be remembered. Sometimes, bravery is a little food shared in secret. Sometimes, it is a place to hide. Sometimes, it is a canoe turning towards a brother who has called for help. This year marks the 81st anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Remembrance matters in years that will follow, when there are fewer survivors, fewer eyewitnesses, and fewer people who remember the events firsthand. Our duty does not diminish as the years pass, it becomes greater. The memorial before us bears the symbol of three lands: the Australian warata, the English rose, and the Malaysian hibiscus. They represent different nations, but here they stand together. Today, Malaysia stands with Australia and the United Kingdom, and especially with the families of the servicemen who suffered and died here. New Zealand and the USA stands with us in solidarity and friendship, and in Anzac and Commonwealth brotherhood. Today, we remember the cost of war and renew our commitment to love and peace. Our responsibility continues after this ceremony. We must preserve the historical records, teach younger generations what happened here, and continue to speak the names of the prisoners of war and the local men and women who helped them. We must reject hatred, dehumanization, and indifference that made such thing possible. This history must not be used to pass hatred to another generation. It must be used to teach each generation where hatred can lead. Victory itself is never enough if we forget its human costs. Peace must be protected in practice by defending human dignity, resolving disputes without violence, and refusing to ignore the suffering of others. The history of Sandakan asks something of each of us. It asks whether we will remember when remembering becomes difficult. It asks whether we will teach when eyewitnesses are no longer here to tell us. And it asks whether, when another human being calls for help, we will turn away or turn towards them. We honor the fallen, we honor those who had helped, and we renew our commitment to peace, dignity, and humanity. May their names continue to be spoken. May their stories continue to be taught. And may the lessons written into the history of Sandakan be carried faithfully from one generation to the next, lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable Datuk Caesar, representing the Right Honorable Chief Minister of Sabah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall have the poem recital. Allow me to introduce to the lectern Mr. Russell Burke, the grandson of Thomas Absary, Bombardier, Royal Australian Artillery, Field Regiment, 8th Division, who was held at Sandakan POW camp and died on the Second Death March on 5th June 1945. Mr. Burke will recite the first poem entitled My Pledge.
Good morning. My pledge. I wasn't there when you waved goodbye to your loved ones left at home. I wasn't there as you sailed away to voyage across the foam. I wasn't there when you stepped ashore in that strange, exotic land, or when you had to lay down your arms to obey your general's command. I wasn't there when you joined the draft to go to Sandakan, and I wasn't there when you toiled and slaved on an airfield for Japan. I wasn't there when you left for Ranau to march in the steam and heat, and I wasn't there as you shuffled along, ignoring your tortured feet. But I often think of your will to live as you and your mates hung on, and I try to sense the thoughts you had when you realised that hope was gone. I'll do my best so others will know of the price that you have paid for the freedom and peace we enjoy today and the sacrifice you've made. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Russell Burke. And now I would like to invite Miss Daphne Delgado, great-grandniece of the Funk brothers who courageously assisted POWs in Sandakan during the war. Alexander Funk was executed while Johnny and Paddy Funk endured severe torture. Miss Daphne will recite the second poem entitled Ranau Road.
Heavy load, muddy track. Miles to go, no turn back. Men die, bodies lie on the Ranau road. Come on, mate, can be late. Up you get, now you're set. Feet fumble, men stumble on the Ranau road. On they go, can be slow. Miles to go, no smoko. Men die, bodies lie on the Ranau road. Escape or die, escape and die. Jungle voice, Hobson's choice. Shots heard, no word on the Ranau road.
Thank you, Miss Daphne Delgado. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite to the lectern Miss Evra Sandra Winara, the great-grandniece of the late Sergeant Korom bin Anduat, MBE, North Borneo Constabulary resistant fighter, guerrilla operative, and recipient of the Member of the Order of the British Empire, MBE, who died in 1953. Miss Evra will now deliver the Malaysian Reminiscence.
Good morning. My name is Evra Sandra Winara, and I'm the great-grandniece of the late Sergeant Korom bin Anduat, MBE. It is a great honor and a deeply personal privilege for me to stand here today to remember my great-granduncle, a member of the North Borneo Constabulary, a resistant fighter, a guerrilla operative, and recipient of the Member of the Order of the British Empire. On behalf of our family, I thank the Sandakan Day Committee for giving us the opportunity to share his story. For many years, my family quietly kept my great-granduncle's story alive. Today, we are deeply grateful that his courage and sacrifice are bringing members together with those of so many others who endured the hardship of war. My great-granduncle, Sergeant Korom bin Anduat, MBE, was one of Sabah's wartime heroes, whose courage and selflessness helped save life during the darkest days of the Second World War. Born in Kampung Kakutar, Sumatalun, Pagalungan, in 1915, Korom was a proud Murut and a member of the North Borneo Constabulary. He and his wife Anggalas were blessed with one daughter, Raita binti Korom, who will be 86 years old in December. My maternal grandfather, Philip bin Antugi, is the son of Sergeant Korom elder brother, Antugi bin Anduat. To those who knew him, my great-granduncle Korom was not only a brave constable, but also a humble man of strong principle, deeply committed to helping others. His service was motivated not by personal gain, but by sense of duty and humanity. During the Japanese occupation, he was stationed in Sandakan and later on Berhala Island. Although serving under difficult and dangerous circumstances, his loyalty remained with the people of North Borneo in the Allied prisoner who suffered greatly during the war. Among his most remarkable act of courage was his role in helping the 8th Allied prisoner of war later known as the Berhala 8 escape from Berhala Island on 4 June 1943. At enormous personal risk of arrest, torture, or death, he provided assistance, information, and guidance for the escape. After the escape, he cleverly misled the Japanese authorities by creating false trails and diversion, allowing the remaining escapees precious time to evade capture. Through his courage, ingenuity, and selfless action, life was saved and hope was kept alive in a time of great darkness. Following this event, Korom continued to serve the Allied cause. He later joined guerrilla operation connected with Operation Aegis IV and worked alongside Major Rex Blow, one of the very men whose life he had helped save. His leadership, local knowledge, and bravery contributed to intelligence gathering and resistance activities that supported the eventual liberation of North Borneo. In recognition of his extraordinary wartime contribution, Korom was awarded the Member of the Order of the British Empire in 1946 and traveled to London, where on 17 June 1946 he was invested with the honor. Yet perhaps his greatest legacy is not the MBE medal he received, but the life he's touched and the example he set for future generations. Though his name might not be widely known, Sergeant Korom bin Anduat stands among Sabah's true wartime heroes. His story reminds us that history is often shaped not only by generals and statesmen, but also by ordinary men and women whose extraordinary courage changed the life of others. His memory continued to be honored in his hometown of Pagalungan, where a memorial was erected in 2017 in recognition of his service and sacrifice. The memorial was funded through the Nabawan Constituency Fund and initiated by Senator Datuk Bobby Swan during his tenure as the Sabah State Legislative Assemblyman for Nabawan. This lasting tribute stands as a symbol of the community's gratitude and ensure that future generations will remember one of Sabah's wartime heroes. Today, we honor Sergeant Korom bin Anduat and all who suffer, serve, and sacrifice during the war. May his memory continue to live on in our hearts, and may future generations remember his courage, his sacrifice, and his service to Sabah. Lest we forget.
Thank you, Miss Evra Sandra Winara. Now I humbly invite Miss Kieran McGee, granddaughter of Bombardier William Andrew McGee, and his younger brother, Private Harry Albert McGee, who both died at Ranau after completing the second Death March in 1945. Miss McGee will deliver the Australian reminiscence.
Selamat pagi. My dad never spoke about his father. We never went to Anzac Day. For most of his life, the loss was too close and too unspoken for that. But now, 80 years later, it's my father who asked me to make this journey. He couldn't come here himself, so I stand here. Bill and Harry's mother was my great-grandma Verley, a widow. She raised her 3 boys alone in Byron Junction in country New South Wales. I knew her. Before I started school, she used to babysit me. We'd have Campbell's soup for lunch, and I'd help her with her chores. We loved each other. Bill was the eldest, Harry the middle boy, and Jack the youngest. Bill was a tease who drove the neighbourhood girls to distraction. Harry was a little scamp. At 13, he was sending jokes into the Daily Telegraph from Byron Junction. Bill won a scholarship to North Sydney Boys High. After school, he returned to the country. Before the war, he was a horseman and rode with the Australian Light Horse, a part-time militia unit. He was working as a clerk when he enlisted in the artillery in 1940. He was training in Sydney when he met Eleanor on a blind date. She was open, beautiful, and full of life, a country girl who had come to the city and was working as a telephonist. They fell instantly in love. Sorry. When I think of Granny, she is telling her story, chest heaving, breathless. Her and Bill running up to the Catholic church in Randwick, knocking on the priest's door and asking how soon they could be married. 52 years later, my sister was married in the same church. Oh, thank God. Hang on. Harry was working as a shop assistant in Byron Junction when the war broke out. He enlisted in early 1941, 9 months after Bill. He left his camera behind, his name embossed on the case. It sits on my bookshelf today. Bill Jr., my father, was born in March 1942. By then, both brothers were already in Singapore. Until Singapore fell, the brothers had been separated, with Harry posted to an infantry battalion. In captivity, they were together again in Changi. 5 weeks later, Harry was transferred to Bill's unit. This is what Granny was told. In Changi, the Japanese asked for volunteers to go to Borneo. Bill wanted to go. It was closer to home, closer to Eleanor, closer to his son. Harry went with him. In 1943, they were sent to Sandakan as part of Air Force. For the next 2 years, they endured the conditions at the camp, working on airfield construction. In January 1945, with the airfield destroyed by Allied bombing, they were among the prisoners forced to march through the mountains. They survived the march only to die at Ranau. Harry died first on 25th February 1945, shortly after arrival. He was 24 years old. Bill died 8 weeks later, on 14th of April. He was 28. His mates carried his body to a cemetery on a nearby hillside. There was no priest. There was nothing to mark the grave. My dad grew up without his father. Granny lost the love of her life and cried every Sunday. Verley carried the grief of losing both her boys for the rest of her life. She outlived her boys by 40 years. When she died in 1986, her ashes were placed in the grave of her husband. On the headstone, she placed 2 plaques, one for her and one for Bill and Harry. My Uncle Jack wrote of his mother. She could never forget her boys. It is their one monument of recognition for their short lives. My dad could not come here himself. He asked me to say this. His father left behind a young wife and a son who have loved him every day. William Andrew McGee, Harry Albert McGee, lest we forget.
Thank you, Miss Kieran McGee. Now it is my honor to invite Madam Lynette Silver on behalf of Miss Wendy Finch, granddaughter of Thomas Rickard, a British POW who remained at Sandakan and passed away on 8th June 1945, to deliver the British reminiscence.
Thomas Rickard, known as Tom, was born on the 24th of February 1916 in Staines near London, the youngest of 8 children of Samuel and Jane Rickard. Before the war, Tom worked as a mechanic at the Lagonda car factory in Staines alongside his older brother Ted, who was employed there as a panel beater. Lagonda played an important role in wartime production, later contributing to aircraft manufacture. He loved cars and in the 1930s was the proud owner of an MG sports car, which he loved to drive to the New Forest to visit his sister and nieces, who enjoyed being driven around by their young uncle. On the 24th of February 1940, his 24th birthday, Tom married Betty Margaret Stern. Their daughter Frida was born in March 1941. The young family also lived in Staines. Although his work at Lagonda was considered a reserved occupation and therefore vital to the war effort, Tom volunteered for service with the Royal Air Force Reserve. With the rank of aircraftman first class, he worked as an engineer fitter. His brother Ted remained at Lagonda to continue the essential wartime production work. From a letter Tom wrote to his mother in September 1941, she knew that he was travelling overseas. He reassured her that he was going somewhere hot, where nothing is happening, so don't worry about me, and asked for her to pass on his love to his wife Betty and baby Frida, who was only 6 months old at the time. Tom was sent to Singapore, but before it fell to the Japanese, was evacuated with other RAF personnel to Java. He was captured there, but a few months later was transferred to Singapore and then transshipped to Jesselton, now Kota Kinabalu, where the British prisoners were forced to build an airstrip, which evolved into Kota Kinabalu International Airport. However, in early 1943, the work party was transferred to Sandakan to labour on airfield construction there. The British were first in a camp near the airstrip, but a few months later moved to the 8 Mile camp, where they occupied a compound about 400 metres from where we are gathered today. In 1945, Tom was not fit enough to go on the death marches, and in late May was one of the 288 Australian and British POWs who remained behind at Sandakan, corralled in a section of the British camp. He died there from a combination of malaria and starvation on the 8th of June. Growing up, my mother knew very little about her father. The only information she was given was that he had died in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. In turn, this was all that I knew. We had no details of where he died, when he died, or the circumstances surrounding his death. I do not know whether my grandmother received letters containing this information and chose not to keep them, or whether any records were simply lost over the years. Whatever the reason, she never spoke about it to my mother. The only tangible reminders of Tom's service were the 3 medals that were sent to my grandmother after the war. Tom's brother Ted never married and spent his entire life living at the family home in Staines. In many ways he became the father my mother never had and the grandfather that my brother and I never knew. He was a kind and devoted man, but he never forgave the Japanese for what happened to his brother. His feelings suggested that he knew something of the terrible treatment Tom and so many other prisoners endured during their captivity. For our family, Thomas Rickard was more than a name on a casualty list. He was a husband, a father, a son, and a brother, whose life was cut tragically short by war. His daughter grew up without ever knowing him, and generations of our family were left with unanswered questions about his final years, lest we ever forget.
Thank you, Madam Lynette Silver. Ladies and gentlemen, now we shall have the roll call of the fallen. I invite descendants of those local Sabahans, Australians, and others who wish to honor a relative lost here in Sandakan, Ranau, or on the death marches to come forward to the microphone, state the name of your relative and your relationship to them. After doing so, please take a tribute from the Girl Guides and stand in front of the obelisk.
Ku Kim Chung, my father-in-law, a civilian leader and a victim of the 27th May 1945.
Aircraftman Thomas Rickard, remembered by his granddaughter.
Graham Newhouse, grandson of Frank Newhouse, Warrant Officer Class 2, died here at Sandakan on the 12th of July 1945.
Kerry Ann Craven. I'm here to honour my grandfather, Arthur Stanley Elbrus, who died on the 19th of June 1945 on the second death march.
Pauline Botel, and I'm here to honour my great uncle, Charles William Pegnell, who passed here in Sandakan.
William Andrew McGee, Harry Albert McGee.
Tom Ebsbury was my grandfather. He came to Sandakan in 1943 and went on the second death march and died at Tangle Crossing on the 6th of June 1945.
For my great-great-uncle, Johnny Fang, Paddy Fang, and Alexander Fang.
For my great-grandfather, Mr. Wun Tao Yin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthony Lagan. I'm here to honor my grandfather, Enes Solagan, who was executed in Kuching.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ibagira binti Paling, is Sergeant Korom, my great uncle. Thank you.
I'm Fiona Koo. I'm here to honor my grandfather, Koo Kim Cheng, who paid the ultimate sacrifice on the 10th of May, 1945.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may lay your tributes on the flower stand with a single rose. Thank you, and you may now return to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now have the official wreath laying. I would now humbly invite the following officials to place the official wreaths. To lay the first wreath, I invite the Honorable Datuk Caesar Mandela Malakun, Assistant Minister to the Chief Minister of Sabah, representing the Right Honorable Chief Minister of Sabah. Next, I invite Her Excellency Miss Danielle Heineke, the Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia. Now I invite His Excellency Mr. A.J. Sharma, CMG, the British High Commissioner to Malaysia. Next, I invite His Excellency Mr. Michael Wehi Mailatonga Walsh, the New Zealand High Commissioner to Malaysia. Now I invite the Honorable Mr. David H. Gamble Jr., Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia, accompanied by the Defense Attaché, Captain Sean Hayes. Next, I invite Madam Norita Tani, Senior Assistant Secretary, representing the Minister and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Environment, Sabah. Now I invite Mr. Johnny Rongitom, Head of Valuation and Property Management, representing the President of Sandakan Municipal Council. And lastly, I invite Ms. Josephine Chai, Chief Marketing Officer, representing Chief Executive Officer of Sabah Tourism Board. With that, we conclude the official wreath laying ceremony. Thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now have the Ode of Remembrance. If you are able to, please stand for the recitation of the Ode of Remembrance by Group Captain Belinda Edmonds, Defence Advisor, Australian High Commission to Malaysia. Please remain standing for the last post, 1 minute silence and the rouse.
They shall grow, not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Catapult party! Attention! Catapult party! Race it!
Ladies and gentlemen, the final part of our service is the laying of private wreaths and floral tributes. For those who are not laying a wreath, I kindly ask you to remain in your seats. For the first private wreath, I invite Group Captain Belinda Edmonds, the Defence Advisor of Australia High Commission to Malaysia. Next, I invite Colonel James Green, Defence Advisor of British High Commission to Malaysia.
The night will give us cover. It's our only chance to go. Put some miles behind us. We have to get away. 'Cause they'll shoot us if they find us, or shoot us if we stay. Harry says he's not coming. He won't make it out tonight.
Now I invite Colonel
Harry
Dale
says he's
Parker,
not coming.
Defence Advisor of
He'll
New
be
Zealand
lucky to
High
see
Commission to Malaysia.
daylight. Harry says he's not coming. Take his boots if it helps your plan. Try to get out and tell the world about Sandakan. 160 miles of hell, 2,000 forced to
Next,
trek.
I invite Miss Sarah Kennedy on behalf
Carrying
of the
rice
Department
they
of
couldn't
Veteran
eat,
Affairs.
60-pound around their neck. Don't dare stumble, don't dare fall. They'll shoot you where you lie. Every step of the way you see another brave man die. Harry says he's not coming. He won't make it out tonight. And Harry says he's not coming. He'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming.
Next, I
Tell his
invite
mum
Mr.
when
Ian
we
Hall,
made his
OAM, on behalf of
You
the
have to
veterans
get out
and
and tell the
families.
world about Sandakan. The rumors had been flying. The war is nearly done. Forsaken by MacArthur, butchered by the Emperor's sons. You can't break a man who died for his mates, and with defiant grace face the keeper of his fate.
Next, I invite Mr. Rodney Eric Bramish on behalf of the veterans of the confrontation.
It's a hot day in Borneo, but there's a chill on
Next,
the
I
Great
invite the
Divide.
Honorable Alex Tien, Sabah State
Southern Cross
Assemblyman
is
for
calling.
N56 Tanjung
Only
Papa.
6 men survive. Not much you can say to a mother who's lost her only sons. The torture and misery, starvation and the guns.
And now, for those who
Harry
wish to
says
pay
he's
your
not
respects with a private wreath
won't
or
make
tribute,
it out
please come
tonight.
forward at this moment.
Harry says he's not coming. He'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming. Don't forget him if you can. And all of the men who were wasted at Sandakan. And Harry says he's not coming. the hills of Borneo. The night will give us cover, it's our only chance to go. Put some miles behind us, we have to get away. 'Cause they'll shoot us if they find us, or shoot us if we stay. And Harry says he's not coming, he won't make it out tonight. Harry says he's not coming, he'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming, take his boots if it helps you plan. Try to get out and tell the world about Sandakan. 160 miles of hell, 2,000 forced to trek, carrying rice they couldn't eat, 60 pound around their neck. Don't dare stumble, don't dare fall, they'll shoot you where you lie. Every step of the way you see another brave man die. And Harry says he's not coming, he won't make it out tonight. And Harry says he's not coming, he'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming, tell his mum where he made his stand. You have to get out and tell the world about Sandakan. The rumours had been flying, the war is nearly done. Forsaken by MacArthur, butchered by the Emperor's sons. You can't break a man who died for his mates, and with defiant grace face the keeper of his fate. It's a hot day in Borneo, but there's a chill on the Great Divide. The Southern Cross is calling, only 6 men survive. Not much you can say to a mother who's lost her only sons. The torture and misery, starvation and the guns. Harry says he's not coming, he won't make it out tonight. Harry says he's not coming, he'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming,
Thank
don't
you all
forget him
very much.
if you can.
Ladies and
all of the
gentlemen,
men
we have
who
reached
were
the
wasted
end of the Sandakan
at
Day
Sandakan.
Memorial Service 2026. On behalf of the Sandakan Municipal
says he's
Council
not coming.
and the Sabah Tourism Board, I express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone involved in making this service possible. Your contributions have made this memorial truly meaningful and respectful. I extend our thanks to the Department of Veterans Affairs Australia, the manager and staff of the Sandakan Memorial Park, members of the Australian and Malaysian Defence Forces, the Sabah Forestry Department, the Duchess of Kent Hospital,
sun
the
is
Scouts
setting
and Girl Guides
swiftly
Associations
on the
and the Red
hills of
Crescent Society,
Borneo.
and all our readers
night
for their
will give us
participation
cover.
in and
It's our
support of this
only
morning's
chance to
service.
go.
On behalf of all those
Put some
involved in
miles
making this
behind
service a
us.
success,
We
I
have
thank you
to
for
get
joining us
away.
here today.
'Cause they'll shoot
And now,
us if they
could I
find
please
us,
request that
or
we
shoot us
remain seated
if we stay.
as the official party stand and prepare themselves for
Harry
official
says he's not
photographs at the obelisk.
He won't make it. Carrying rice they couldn't eat, 60 pound around their neck. Don't dare stumble, don't dare fall, they'll shoot you where you lie. Every step of the way you see another brave man die. And Harry says he's not coming, he won't make it out tonight. And Harry says he's not coming, he'll be lucky to see daylight. Harry says he's not coming, tell his mum where he made his stand. You have to get out and tell the world about Sandakan. The rumours had been flying, the war is nearly done. Forsaken by MacArthur, butchered by the Emperor's sons. You can't break a man who died for his mates, and with defiant grace face the keeper of his fate.
Thank you all for your cooperation. For your information, refreshments will be provided near the pavilion. You are all cordially invited for the refreshments. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, thank you all for being part of this meaningful occasion. Have a pleasant day ahead. To our visitors from outside Sabah, safe travels and may you enjoy your stay here in Sandakan, Sabah, Malaysian Borneo. Thank you, Sabah, Maju Jaya.
Calling